for you. Amen. As I listen. Hey, everybody, gather near. The doctor's in the house, so lend him your ear. The things he can say might even make your day. He might even help your pain go away. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me, the doctor is in the house. Welcome to episode 638, and today we will be talking about the bottled water illusion and how what you think is pure and paying a premium for is actually less safe than what's coming out of your taps. So thank you, everybody, for supporting Dr. Ron Unfiltered, Uncensored. I really do enjoy doing this podcast, and I hope you like the information that I put out on it. I'd like to also direct you to a Substack page, dr.ron at Substack, where I've been posting articles 2 and 3 times a week to keep you up to date on what is happening in medicine and get you prepared for the next scam. The podcast that I was doing with Dr. Smith and Wong is on hold for now because of severe censoring by YouTube. So we put all this work into the podcast, but they are taking them down. And the last one was taken down because we talked about the flu and actually did not recommend the flu shot. So be that as it may, today I do want to talk to you about this scam. Picture this. You're standing in a convenience store. It's hot. It's boiling. You're thirsty. There's a water fountain in the corner. Free, cold, perfectly drinkable. But what do? You walk to the cooler, grab a plastic bottle, and pay $2 for the water. Why the heck do we do this? So here at Dr. Ron Unfiltered Uncensored, we're going to cut through all the BS and get to the truth. And we're going to try exposing one of the most brilliant marketing scams of the past 50 years. The one that convinced billions of people that water from plastic bottles is somehow better than water from a tap. Well, there's a spoiler alert here. It's not. It's actually worse. And the truth is way more interesting and frankly more infuriating than you think. Well, let's get unfiltered. When did we stop trusting tap water? It wasn't always like this. If you grew up in the 70s, or as I did in the 40s and 50s, in a developed country, you drank water from the tap. You drank it from the garden hose, from the fire hydrants, from public fountains. Nobody thought twice about it. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. Bottled water went from being a luxury item, something you see just at fancy restaurants, or it was a grocery store staple, a global industry worth over $300 billion. Here's the kicker. In most developed countries, tap water did not get worse. If anything, it got better. This is one time where regulation was good. It was more regulated, more tested, safer than it's been in human history. What happened? Well, marketing happened. Just like we've been talking about the drug industry. Marketing has trumped science. Marketing. Brilliant, manipulative, absolutely shameless marketing. Bottled water companies are not selling you hydration. They're selling you fear. Fear of your own infrastructure, fear of contamination. And then they wrap up that fear in pretty pictures of mountain springs and pristine glaciers. God, that's hilarious. Most bottled water comes from the same municipal sources as tap water. They're literally bottling tap water and charging you 1,000% markup. But listen, here's where it gets interesting. And by interesting, I really mean getting enraged. Recent research is revealing that the pure, so-called quote unquote pure water we're paying premium prices for is actually less safe than what's coming out of your taps. Yep, you heard me. You heard me right. Dr. Mohammed Wakil Shahzad at Northumbria University in Newcastle recently led a study that should make every bottled water executive deeply uncomfortable. His team tested water sold in refillable jugs and plastic bottles. Good question. What did they find? High levels of bacterial contamination. All right, this is not a Morgan & Morgan, so before the lawyers come after me, we're not talking about immediate danger here, but we're talking about a product that's marketed as pristine, that people literally choose because they think it's cleaner than tap water, containing bacteria that you would never find in a properly maintained public water supply. And this isn't some isolated study. This is part of a growing mountain of research that's completely flipping our assumptions upside down. Well, it's really an absurd situation because in most developed countries, the United Kingdom, the US, Canada, and all across Europe, tap water is held to stricter legal standards than bottled water. Stricter standards. Public water supplies are monitored daily. Every single day, they're testing for bacteria, heavy metals, pesticides. In the United Kingdom, the Drinking Water Inspectorate publishes those results openly. They can literally, over there, they tell me, now I haven't seen it myself, but you can literally go online and check the quality of your local water supply. So there's transparency and accountability for you. Bottled water? Well, it's regulated as a packaged food product. It's tested less frequently. And the beautiful part of this, manufacturers are not required to publish detailed quality information. So here we have no transparency, no accountability. The water you're paying $2, $3, $4 a bottle for, the water marketed as pure and pristine with images of untouched nature, is actually less regulated than the water flowing from your kitchen tap. And the water coming from your tap only costs a fraction of a penny. So just like with other scams, they sell fear while giving you less protection. As I said, that's not business. That's a con game. Well, wait. It gets worse. Let's talk about what's actually in that bottle. In 2024, researchers detected tens of thousands of plastic particles per liter in some bottled water products. Let me say that again. Tens of thousands of plastic particles in every liter. These are the microplastics, the tiny fragments, and even tinier nanoplastics that break down from the bottle itself. And the cherry on top of all this, multiple studies now show that bottled water contains higher concentration of these particles than tap water. You're paying more money for plastic. Isn't that great? Fantastic, right? And we're not just talking about swallowing tiny pieces of plastic that'll pass through your system. Well, as I've been reporting on and doing podcasts on, and my Substack page has articles on the fact that scientists are finding potential links between microplastic exposure and inflammation, hormone disruption, and the accumulation of these particles in human organs. Yes, your organs, your liver, your kidneys, and potentially crossing the blood-brain barrier. Remember, again, I've talked about them finding it in the brain. Now, I want to be scientifically honest. The research is still emerging. We do not have all the answers yet about the long-term health effects, but what we do know is concerning. It's concerning enough that researchers worldwide are in a panic mode trying to understand what chronic repeated exposure might mean. And chronic exposure is exactly what we've got because billions of people now drink bottled water. It's like we're running an uncontrolled experiment on ourselves. Well, you think that's all? No, there's also the chemicals that are leaching from the plastic itself. This is where it gets into the nightmare territory. Antimony, phthalates, bisphenol, bisphenol analogs like BPS and BPF, which are close chemical cousins of BPA, the compound we worked so hard to eliminate from baby bottles because it was messing with their hormones. These chemicals migrate from the plastic into the water, especially when bottles are stored in warm places like your car or maybe in the warehouse before they're shipped out. And where do we constantly keep water bottles? As I said, in our cars. Watch out in the summer, in delivery trucks sitting in the sun for hours, the warehouse shelves and unconditioned facilities. So some of these compounds are what are called endocrine disruptors, meaning they can mess with your body's hormone system. High exposure to certain phthalates and bisphenols have been linked to effects, guess what, on the reproductive health, your metabolism and development. And remember, I'm a mitochondriac. We have to be really conscious of our metabolic health. Our mitochondria are super, super important. So what do we get from the industry? Well, they tell you that, and I hear it all the time, the levels are generally low and within acceptable limits. And technically, they're not wrong, but generally, low or zero risk are not the same thing. And when you're drinking 3 or 4 or 5 bottles a day, every day for years, that's chronic exposure, and it adds up in ways we're only beginning to understand. And tell me, who decided what's acceptable? Who decided that? The same regulators that test bottled water less frequently than tap water? You know, the people that have standards that don't require manufacturers to disclose their testing results? Sure. Don't you feel safe now? Well, I feel really safe too. Well, here's something that'll blow your mind. Bottled water is not sterile. And it also has Freddie in the background. Bottled water is not sterile. I think a lot of people, maybe unconsciously or unthinkingly, assume that a sealed bottle equals is completely clean, completely safe. But that's a wrong assumption, ladies and gentlemen. Once you open a bottle, those little bugs called microorganisms, they can really multiply. That half-finished bottle you left in your cup holder on a warm afternoon, that's not a refreshment waiting for you. That's a bacterial playground. And if you're reusing these single-use bottles, which many of us do, trying to be environmentally conscious, you know what you're doing? You're introducing bacteria from your saliva and the environment in every single drink you take every time you refill it. Those bottles are not designed to be washed properly. The threads, the cap, the narrow opening are perfect places for bacteria to hide and multiply. Now you take your tap water. In developed countries, it's continuously treated, continuously monitored, and managed to prevent bacterial growth. It's designed for consumption. It's engineered to be safe. But sure, I know we're going to keep paying for that pure bottled water. Well, you know, there's only so much information I guess we can handle. Let's talk about something a lot of people don't even consider. How about minerals? Tap water generally contains some beneficial minerals like calcium and magnesium. In many countries, and thank God we don't do it in Florida, they add fluoride. That's a whole nother podcast. It's one of the most successful public health. Well, you know what? I don't know where I got that from. That is bad mistake. Fluoride has not saved anything. In fact, it causes calcification of the pineal gland. It can mess with your emotions. But there is minerals in water, calcium and magnesium. In bottled water, the mineral content varies widely depending on the brand and the source. Some brands strip out nearly everything through reverse osmosis, and others add minerals back in the artificial. They're artificial and they're just for taste. And here's a stat. You know what? I don't. This. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I guess when I was typing this up, I made a few mistakes. But we're paying extra money to give our kids less minerals and maybe some bacteria. Now, even if you're willing to accept all these trade-offs, even if you want to gamble with microplastics and hormones, there's still an elephant in the room we cannot ignore, and that's an environmental catastrophe. Global water bottles consumed globally, bottled water consumption is so obscenely high that roughly 1 million plastic bottles are purchased every single minute. Is that incredible? I mean, when I saw that, I had trouble writing that down. 1 million plastic bottles per minute. 1 million bottles every 60 seconds. A Danish water technology company is called Aquaporin. They ran the numbers. Producing a liter of bottled water requires up to 2,000 times more energy than supplying 1 liter of tap water. 2,000 times for an inferior product. Marinate on that for a while. And, I don't know. I don't write or read too much about carbon footprints, but they say around 80 grams of CO2 per liter when you factor in the transportation and the refrigeration. Well, it turns out that 80 grams of CO2, it adds up to a lot because you got to multiply it by that billions of bottles consumed every day. And where do all those bottles end up? Well, even in countries that have good recycling programs, and most do now, the majority ends up in landfills, or worse, it lands up in the oceans. They say that plastic bottles are now one of the most common forms of beach pollution worldwide. We're really drowning our planet in plastic, right? Just so we can drink water that's worse than that comes out of our taps. Man, there's an oxymoron there someplace. There's something wrong with us. Well, I don't know. Are we going to be able to change? It should get us fired up because bottled water exists because we don't trust our infrastructure. And look, in some places, that mistrust is absolutely justified. There are communities around the world, even in the United States, where tap water generally is not safe. Flint, Michigan, we remember that story. That should haunt us. There's aging systems out there that desperately need investment. And these are real problems that need real solutions. But in most developed nations, for most people, the problem is not water quality. The problem is the perception that it is not of good quality. The problem is that we've been marketed into mistrusting one of the most successful public health systems ever created while simultaneously trusting corporations. Guess what? They have a motivation. And that motivation is profit, not safety. So, like with a lot of the drugs I talked about, we've been played. Not only have we been played, but we're paying for that privilege. Who's the sucker? Meanwhile, the actual challenges facing our water supplies are real and growing. Rapid urbanization, industrial pollution, population growth, genuinely straining freshwater resources. So we have to invest in our infrastructure. And I don't want to go there, but we really have to. We have to do that rather than buying plastic bottles full of tap water covered in pictures of mountains. So let's talk solutions. Enough complaining already. This Dr. Shahzad he's not just studying the problem. His team is building solutions. They're developing something called Solar 2 Water, number 2, Solar 2, number 2 Water, a portable solar-powered device that generates clean drinking water directly from the air. Really? No pipes, no treatment plants, no plastic bottles, just solar energy and atmospheric moisture. That could be a game changer. It could be a game changer. They reduce dependence on the use of these single-use plastics. It gives options to communities where the trust in public water has been damaged because the infrastructure is failing. We need this kind of innovation, not more marketing that's out there to convince us to buy water in plastic bottles. And we really do have a good solution for most people in developed countries. You know what it's called? Reusable bottle and a tap. Hopefully a stainless steel reusable bottle and a tap. All right. Before I recorded this, we did have some questions, and I want to go through a couple of these. A question from Sarah in Portland. Dr. Ron, what about emergencies? Should I keep bottled water on hand for disasters? Well, that's a great question, really. And the answer is absolutely yes. Keep bottled water for emergencies, natural disasters, infrastructure failures, maybe a contamination event. Bottled water is genuinely essential then. And that's a completely legitimate use, and I'm not suggesting otherwise. What I'm questioning, what I'm calling out as an absolute nonsense is the routine use of bottled water in places where tap water is perfectly safe. Now, if you're going to keep an emergency supply, it's generally recommended that you rotate that supply every 6 months to be prepared. But for everyday hydration, filling up at the gym, from your office desk, tap water is almost always a better and safer choice. And I had another one here from Marcus from Chicago. I live in an older building and I'm genuinely worried about lead pipes. Should I drink tap water? Well, Marcus, that's a great concern. And I'm not going to dismiss it because older buildings can have lead plumbing. And that's a real serious health risk, especially for children and pregnant women. But you know what, Marcus? You can get the water tested, period. Many cities offer free or low-cost testing. Some will even test it for you if you call them. They'll come out and take the sample and find out what you're actually dealing with instead of operating on fear and assumptions. This way you have it's either lead or not lead, and it can be mitigated. And if you do have lead contamination, here's the thing. A good quality filter can remove it. Maybe one that costs between $30 and $50 for a pitcher or a faucet filter. Well, and when you compare that to paying $200 to $400 a day for bottled water indefinitely, it's a no-brainer. Test first, filter if needed, Marcus. And one last question from Emma in Bristol. Okay, Dr. Ron, I'm convinced by your arguments, but tap water just tastes weird to me. What do I do? Well, I don't think you're alone, Emma. Taste is subjective. Different water sources have different mineral profiles that affect flavor. That's real. Here's your options. First, try chilling your tap water. Seriously, temperature affects your perception of taste. And cold water tastes better than most people, regardless of the source. My daughter lives in southern Spain. They have a really high mineral content. She puts it in the refrigerator. Tastes pretty good. Put some lemon in it. Second, get a simple carbon filter. I'm not going to give you any names, but you know the big names. They're cheap and they remove the chlorine taste that bothers a lot of people. So you can do that. If your tap water has a low mineral content, again, you can have that tested and taste flat. You can add a pinch of sea salt or Himalayan salt or a little squeeze of lemon. Sounds weird, but it does work. You know what? This is tough to take, but believe it or not, your taste preferences are adaptable. Maybe if you give it a couple weeks of consistently drinking the tap water, your palate will adjust. It's worth a try. And the point isn't that tap water tastes identical to your favorite bottle brand. The point is that with minimal effort and minimal cost, you can make that tap water enjoyable. So what did we learn today? Well, I did a lot of talking today. We learned that bottled water you're paying premium prices for is probably less regulated and potentially more contaminated, definitely worse for the environment and possibly worse for your health than water from your tap. So the purity we're buying is an illusion. It's a marketing fantasy. It's brilliant. So we do need bottled water. It should not disappear entirely. It has its place in emergencies and in regions where the infrastructure has generally failed. But in most developed countries, for most of the people, most of the time, we're solving a problem that doesn't exist while creating massive problems that do. So if you're in a convenience store, you're thirsty, you're standing in line with one hand on the cooler door, have that pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, am I paying for hydration or am I paying for the fear that if I drink tap water, it's going to be bad for me? Am I making a rational choice based on the evidence? Am I falling for the marketers, the people that work for the big industrial companies? Because chances are the best water available to you is already in your building. It's tested daily. Sometimes the simplest choice really is the best one. Less is more. And sometimes calling out the BS is the most important thing we can do. So thank you for putting up with me today. A little bit of complaining. This is Dr. Ron, Unfiltered, Uncensored. If this episode got you charged up, good. If it changed how you think about something as basic as drinking water, even better. Share it with someone. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. We're going to be taking on some other sacred cows as the year goes on. We always have to ask, are we actually healthier or are we just creating expensive urine? And we'll talk about that when we talk about vitamins, right? Until then, stay curious, stay skeptical, stay angry at the right things, and for the love of science, invest in a good reusable water bottle, not plastic. Not plastic. So by the time this is released, it'll be near New Year's. So happy New Year's to everybody. Have a happy, healthy, and prosperous New Year. Stay informed. Stay unfiltered. I'm Dr. Ron. You can also subscribe for free on my Substack, dr.ron at Substack. And get on the list. No charge. So, ladies and gentlemen, God bless. Have a great day, and we will see you next time.
Hey everybody, Dr. Ron's finished for today. I hope you got some good wisdom for what the man had to say. If it's all about good health, he's the man you got to see. He has a lot more answers for you. So tune in next week when the doctor is in the house. Or when the doctor is in the house. And let the doctor know what's bothering you. When the doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. And let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. When the doctor is in the house.